The next video help, we're going to be covering these buttons on this side of the screen. We're still in the consignor data screen, and what we're going to be doing is we need to assign items to this client or consignor's inventory. What that means is for consignor ID 1, we're going to start adding items to the consignment area, and this will be for this particular client. If I move to a different record and it was a different ID, like over here where I said test, if I click on test, see I haven't filled it out yet, but then it would be for consignor ID number 2. And of course the test record and all this information should be filled out when you're ready. Now let's go back and we can say to the first record, and we click the button to do that. And what we're going to say now is let's go ahead and look and see what is the consignor or consignment item listing. This is a popover. What is a popover? This gives me the ability to open up a screen without having to go to the map and show that particular screen. Plus, I want to point out, this is very important, the items that are over here should be initiated by a popover. In other screens, if you see the buttons form on the side, that means when you add the record or records to that screen, you should have that information come up from one of the popovers if it's available. Now in this screen we have the item listing, the consignor contract, the consignor map, which is a Google map that allows you to see where the consignor is located, and if you have to pick up or take back items where you can have them pay for the transportation. Say for example you own a truck where you take stuff back and forth from consignors. You could have the map to show exactly where they live. And of course that is listed over here. If you have an address for the person and their street, that information is the information that is used in order to show where you're taking the person. Consignment events, we're going to go through that, but basically it's any event that may be related to this client. Maybe you're going to go to a estate sale and this is a consignor for that estate sale, or say maybe it's a yard sale or a moving sale. You can create a record here, add all their items, and then take your computer or laptop or whatever it is to the consignment sale and run the sale right out of their office or home, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. So that would be put into the events, and then you have the UDFs. This is something I created over many years ago, and what it does is if you have a field that you want to find and it's not in this area or on any screen that you're at, you want to add some more information, you can go to the consignor UDF and you can add that information in here. What it has is it has the ID for the consignor, it has the UDF date that you actually added this, and it's a drop down, the title of what you want to put in here, and the actual information that you want to make remarks at. So you got return items called the client. Client donated all the remaining items. So we know that this guy for number 1 record sent all the stuff and donated it to us. If you want to read the portal for this, it takes you to the portal record. The same item is on the app menu drop down. The UDF, and then there's consignor credit. Consignor credit, for example, shows if you have commissions that you've created from the sale of items, what this is going to do, it's going to show you the actual item that was sold by showing you the person who is the consignor, the item ID number, or the consignor ID number, and then the item ID and a description of that item. So that where it says no description here, it'll have the description of the item when we list it. And then you can go to the record for all the items that show on this record here. Down at the bottom, they're going to show the sum of credits that you have based on the same green field up here. If they've used any of their credits, that'll be entered here. And if they have money remaining, they would have that here in this field. Now when you go back over to the screen, you'll see that this is the area where they start piling up all your commissions. Commissions here, what you've used, in the balance. Okay, so let's go to the very last one. We're going to go back now. These buttons, by the way, take you to the actual screen where the buyer listing is. And the buyer listing is like the consignment screen, very much the same, only these are buyers and information that you gather from the buyer. Say, for example, they're local people in your area, and you want to keep track of them and send them either emails or messages or flyers or whatever. You would have all their information on that screen. And in the same way, the buyer is used the information is used on the invoice, you pick them from a drop down, and then what it does is it fills in the fields. And add an invoice, you add an invoice by clicking on here to start an invoice input. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's cover the first one up here in this video, so we'll complete this video. The consignor ID is the number 1. The item ID is a number that will sequence for this particular consignor. So every time we put a new item in there, the next available number, and that's clear, I want to be clear about that, the next available number will be added here. So for example, if I did another one today for this guy here, it would be number 2, but if I moved to somebody else's record and started adding a new thing for them, it would be number 3. And if I came back here and added a new one, it'd be 4. You can see, so each one has their own unique number and it cycles each time. We have our familiar buttons here to move up and down the screens. And as you'll find out that this, when you click on it, highlights it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and drag, and you'll see that this is a portal with multiple records in it. You can have as many items as you want to add in here. It puts the default name of the person. As you click in any field, for example, if I put the date in there, I don't have to put the date, by the way, it's automatic. If I click in a record and then add something here, like type in something, then it'll fill in these records, anything that says auto entry. So like for example, the item sold is when you actually have it on an invoice and you select sold, it'll automatically fill in the date here. It'll show the item sell price. The item sell price is actually what you're offering the item at. And when you talk to the consignor, you can put what you negotiate in this field right here. When the item actually is sold, the sold at price will go here. It could be greater than or less than the actual offering price. So it says offer price and sold price. You need to put a quantity in here when you sell it on the invoice to make sure that the invoice will calculate all the information that you need to have in there. You can add what is called a combo report ID in here, and basically you can create a auto entry that'll come into every screen from here on thereafter. And you can put just about anything you want in there and it'll show up on all the next screens. So it's called a combo report field. Okay, the next thing we talk about is, by the way, this is not a drop down for the name. This is automatically moved from the main record over here. When you open this up, it should be in there. Let's back up and go back to the other screen that has got all the data in it, so we can start covering it. This is the consigned date. It's auto-entered when you create a new record. You add the description of the item that you're going to consign, and that consigned item should be no larger in text as this field right here. If you put anything longer than that in there, when it goes on to an invoice, it's going to truncate that information. If the item had a sold date in there and it was sold, this particular date you would add. You offered the item at $30.29 and it sold for $29.79. And the reason that is there was probably a discount. And let's go ahead and see here. The discount field, okay, well, I didn't show the discount field, but anyhow, they could have had a discount on it. In this case, since the item sold and it says, it's over here, the status says it's sold, and I'm going to show you this a little closer later. And as you can see in here, what I did is I put in the information, this automatically fills in the information from data that is actually on the screen, and it gives you something you can copy and paste if you need to on a tag or something like that if you need to. There are also tags included in this application that are based on information that's in these fields. So when you want to print it, it'll look similar to this, only it won't have the consignor name. It'll have other information and it looks about like this. Let's go up to the next thing up here, the store consignor percent and the consignor percent. This is created by the agreement that you have in your contract for the amount that you're offered, and it may change by different kinds of items. For example, if you have very expensive items, the consignor store owner may choose to try a different percentage here. When you click on the green one, this one's red, you don't edit that one. You can come down here and you can go ahead and add like 0 and it makes this 100%, or 100% by the one you're clicking on, but that's not normal. You would not give the store 100% unless you were doing something. I'm going to show you special in a bit what that is. And then there's like 10%, 20, 30, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, and so forth. If you want to modify these, you click this and then go in and edit those. And they should always be a decimal, because what it's going to do, it's going to change the decimal to a fraction for a percentage. The next thing you're going to look at is the category in which this particular item goes into. And you can edit this as well and put all the items in it that you want to have in your store. For example, you may have furniture or whatever. You just click these and edit whatever the kind of things are that you're going to be selling. Why do we have a category? Well, if you're looking with using a search for particular records that are in the inventory, you can use, say, for example, shirts or slacks or a dress or whatever, and it'll show only those records when you go to look at the inventory item list view. That way you can take the items that are what you're looking for and narrow it down to the kind of things that you want to have a look at for, say, for example, somebody walks in and they're looking for something like a dress and they're a size 12. What you can do is add both the categories so you can find it. And when you go to do a search, you would go ahead and start the search. And what it'll do is it'll open up not in this screen, I'm going to explain why, but it'll open up in the actual portal record, which we're talking about over here. When you go to a portal, the actual individual record is shown as opposed to having a lot of records, for example, like the ones that are in here. When you want to do a search, what you need to do is go to the portal and do your search in the portal. The reason for that is that you can't search a multi-line item as far as portals are concerned. So if I went in and tried to do a search, it may put the little magnifying glasses in here, but it's not going to allow you to search. It'll give you an error. So we've got down to the point where we put the size in. Again, this is a drop down. It also includes the edit at the bottom in like small, medium, extra large. You could put petite in there if you wanted, or say, for example, a shoe. Maybe you have a wide shoe. You can put wide in there for a shoe, or whatever, like a belt size 36 or something like that, whatever you want to edit that for. Now, this is a very important area here. By the way, we did find that there's a 50-cent discount. I got to it. There was a 50-cent discount on that. And there's a field for putting in a discount. If you have a shipping fee, where this is an item that needs to be shipped, you would put the value of the shipment here. And what this will do, it'll show up on a report as a separate item. It will be not commissioned. So, and also this is not commissioned because it's deducted from the amount that's actually in there. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So here, let's look at this drop down. The drop down is the item status for the item status field. This also can be edited. What you do not change is for sale, sold store, and sold. Those are mandatory, and don't erase them or change them. They're required. Things like donated, returned, and damaged, and holding, and layaway are pretty important also. So if you want to add something other in here, for example, maybe you're going to send it to a church, and you can put donate church. That's specific. Even though you have donated, you might want to say donated church if you want to go back and check how many things that you ever donated to a church. So I'm going to show you something that's kind of interesting. When you say for sale, it changes a lot of things here. You can see that the shipping fee or whatever, there's going to be some fields that are going to be less items in them than there were before, for example. But when I come back over here and I say sold, what it's going to do is, you saw it drop this in here. This is the store commission at 55% and the consignor's commission at $13.41. The one thing you're going to be doing here, as the item is sold, on the day you sell it or the day you sell items, you need to come back in and copy the store commission to the store commission and the consignor commission to the consignor's commission up here. The reason this is not automated is you can't automate it until it's actually required. And you'll see that there are places where you can add this in different places, so it's quite easy to add these two items in here. You also put in the commission paid date, depending upon if you pay every 30 days or how you pay things, or you use store credit. You would put the store credit in there in the block for the store credit. So, and then if you have a recon fee, this is something, say, like the piece of furniture was brought in, or even a dress. For example, if a dress was torn and you repaired it, the fee goes to the consignor, and it is deducted from his commission when he gets his commission. So this commission would be altered based on how much you put down for the fee. So if I put 2 in here, it would bring this back down. Let's just go ahead and do it so you can see it. I'll say 1, and it'll deduct that 1 from this. So let's go ahead and put it back in there again and say delete. Okay, you can actually add a picture in here either from an iPad or a laptop or whatever by saying insert a picture, or you can go ahead and do it from the library on your iPad, for example, and put it in there. It will say something different like insert from photo library or whatever for an iPad. This we didn't finish with. I want to go back and say that you can also do sold store. And what sold store does is it takes the commission from the consignor, and this is if the consignor has relinquished his period of time on having this item on in the store. What it'll do is it'll make this 0 and it'll make this 100% for the store, and the store will get the credit for all the money that is sold for this item. So say store credit, sold store, and what it actually doesn't do it here, and I'll explain why. It's on the actual portal. The portal information, you do not do this sold store in here because it's actually going to be done on the invoice, and then it's going to change things on the this portal record for this. I don't think we did it. We'll do a list of items in here, and you're going to see it has the ID consignor, the item ID itself, the item description. If it's sold or not, it'll be here, and you'll have your drop-down list from here. If it is a consigned paid date and you're paying the commission, you want to make sure either here or in the record report that we're going to be looking at that is added. And then over here you'll see the buyer's fee, and we'll explain that when we're going to go back to the other record. You can edit this record by clicking here, and it'll go back, and then you have top and last over here. You can use the do action, but in this case we have so much activity going so fast in adding this data that you can use top and bottom. If say like you're way down in the report, you want to go right to the top, you don't have to click in the do action on this report. And then you have your items that are listed, date sold and so forth. A lot of this is filled in from the transaction that you're doing on the invoice. So all this data would be filled in. It also fills in a lot of the data in this screen that is not there. For example, if you sell the item and you do I'm trying to find it again, either a recon fee, or you're going to do a buyer's fee, and or you're going to change this for some reason by giving a discount, it's going to change this information in here. Now, what is a buyer's fee? You can pick any number you want to add to this number over here, basically where it says with the buyer's fee. See where it says sell with buyer fee? This, if you don't put a buyer's fee on it, will be the same as this price right here. If you put a buyer's fee on it, the item will then sell at this number. If you don't put a buyer's fee on, $29.79 is here, and in this case we put a 99-cent buyer's fee on here, so it rose to $30.78. And this is the field that will be seen on the invoice where it says what you're supposed to be paying, the client is supposed to be paying that's buying it. This is the actual value that it's being sold for. If you gave a discount, obviously a discounted sum. But what happens, you always, if you're going to put in a buyer's fee, this is not shown in the commissions. This is separate from the commissions. So this has a report where it shows the different items, like the buyer's fee, or if you're going to do something like discount it. If you do a discount, you put the discount in here. It's also going to discount this number here. So for example, if I took out the discount, then this would change again to the number that whatever the discount will be taken off of this. And it'll also be taken off this number over here as far as doing a discount. So now we did almost everything here. When you do put in a consignor's commission, even though it's up here, it's also going to duplicate it down here. And I'll tell you the reason why we're going to discuss it over here. It'll also show the buyer. You don't have to put the buyer in here. It's automatically put in when you do the invoice, but it's reflected here so you'll know who bought this item. What is a walk-in client? Well, when we go to do buyers, you always put in as a default a walk-in client. There's people that do not want to give you their information, and they're cash buyers, and they don't want to be added to your list for some reason. You usually suggest, would you like to be added to our mailing list? And then you would take the information in the buyer screen and add that information to the buyer screen. This particular information is kind of interesting. If you sell retail items, if you click on duplicate retail, what it's going to do, you want to be in the record that you want to duplicate. And say, for example, you bought one or more. In this case, I'm going to say we bought 5 of these items. I'm going to put 5 in there. And what I'm going to do is say duplicate, and I'll duplicate this. This will be the primary. I'll duplicate 4 more records. And what it'll do is it'll take most of the information you see and put it in that new record to include almost everything you see. But each time you add a new record for retail, it's going to put another numeral number different up here. And by the way, you cannot edit these in here. As I click on them, you can see that. It'll carry over all the information that you're seeing on the screen now. If it's sold, make sure that it's not sold when you make the duplicate of it. If you do it, it's no big deal, because what you're going to have to do is go back in and change things to for sale. For example, if it's a new item and you're going to have to change it to for sale, and then you're going to have to do other stuff. Now, if this is the owner of the store and their record and they're duplicating retail items, what you want to do is make sure that it is, when you're going to sell it, it says sold store, because those items are the things that go into your account for your store. And when they say sold store, that means that there's not going to be any commission up here for the consigner. It'll all be 100% up here. So for example, if I did 0 here, it's going to go to 100%. So I can go right back in there and do, I guess we lost that. It should say the different things. I don't know why it did that, but that should be 45%. Oh, well, that's a good idea. Let's go ahead and show you this. You can go in here and push in there 45. And guess what happens? It goes back. What happens is, apparently when I killed the records, when I dumped them, I had a bunch more records in here. What it did is it changed the drop. Oh, no, there's a drop down. I don't know why I did that. Anyhow, the drop down's there. So you put in 45, and now it says 55, and that's 100% of the share. Now, when I duplicate a record in this number will not change. It's just saying that we put 5 retail items into the application. Now, what I'm going to explain here is that you can sell retail items. For example, you go out, like I have one client that had an Indian reservation they were near, and Indians would bring in items, and duplicate items. And what we would do, instead of putting in or recreating records in here, or creating another new record and just go through all the rigmarole, you can create it over again, and it'll bring on most of the information so that you don't have to duplicate that information yourself. So it makes it very easy to add information for a retail item. Okay, this video is getting a little long, but I'm trying to go all through all these items. You can see that we're going to be covering these in the next video. What I wanted to do was also show you that we have these 2 we did here. This is a sequencing situation where if you're going to be selling the items, and they're going to be time sequenced, and what that means is 30, 60, 90, and 104 days. I'll explain what this does. Every 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days, there's going to be a discount. If you do not want to use this, you don't have to. But if you do use it, you'd put something like 10, 20, and 30% discount on the item that is actually selling up here. So this is not going to change, but what's going to happen is it is going to reduce the amount that this thing would be sold at for a period of time. So for example, you can see that on 30 days, once it hits 30 or more, you want to look down here on the invoice itself. It'll say this day since listing was 655 days. In this case, it say date to sale was 24 days. Now, in most cases, when you add a new item to your store, it's going to start out as 1 up here and 1 down here. And as the time goes by, it's going to be another day that this thing is sitting without being sold. So this will start out actually with 0, because when it sells and you put the sold date in, automatically it's going to tell you what the sold date is. And it'll be 24 days. This allows you to see how long it takes items to sell on your floor, so that if they take a long time, you're going to say to yourself, I don't want to put that on the floor again. I'll avoid those items. Yet this record actually started back in June 6, 2015, so it's 655 days from the date that this was actually consigned. And in the future, what we would do is, if you put the date sold over here, and that's paid date, sorry. The date that it's sold would be the date right that goes in right here. And what that would do is it would tell you how many days it's been, how long did it take to sell. Now, in this particular case, this record I was playing with it, so it has some odd data in it. I had to recreate the record and put the correct date in here, and this thing is the day it sold. So now it would be like the 655 days. Okay, we're doing a lot of things here. Let's do the last few things. You can add consigned notes in here that are related to the item in this screen. The consigned notes may be something like there was something found on an item and it can't sell until it's fixed. And then when it's fixed, you're going to probably want to put your trying to find it here again. You can see, okay, recon fee in this area here. Whatever it costs you to repair that item, if it's more than the cost of the item or quite a bit of the cost of the item, that's going to come out of the commissions up here. So you want to make sure you check that. Now, tax rate. If you have taxes, and this brings up a list so you can edit and put your own tax rates in there. Just click it and edit over here. The tax rate, if you don't have any tax, just don't put in a tax rate. So I go over here, I click off, click back, and click a white area, and now there's no tax. Okay, so you can pick whatever rate you want, and this is based on what the sell price is, so it's going to show the tax rate. Now, in the actual invoice, you can set a tax rate or whatever you want it in the invoice. It'll be in one of the rows, and it'll show the tax. It won't show the tax of the invoice, but you can set it there if you want to for the tax rate, and it will show you at the top of the invoice. It will show you what the tax is going to be. And you can, in the area when we get to it, it'll show you can put a different tax rate on every item, and it'll show that way. Okay. Okay, let's see what we have not covered. I believe we covered just about everything. If you have any issues or you don't understand some of the things that are going on in this screen, you can contact us by going over and clicking on the Do action, come down and hit the support button and get onto our site. We're there 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. available to you most weekdays, and on weekends we're available if we're in the area. Okay, one thing it does show up here, it shows the max amount of money you collected for sales so far that you've actually got for selling items. And of course, in this particular case, this is the only item that's in there, so it's going to show that. As you sell more items, this number is going to grow to show you the total amount that you've actually sold as far as items sold. That's not the same thing as having the individual record commissions here for the total of what was sold. As you do a new one and sell a new item, that's going to grow by the amount. In this area, this automatically comes over from the screen that we saw before, and you don't have to edit this or change it. It's in there as the consigner, so you know the consigner is. Okay, well, this pretty well covers this screen. If you have any answers or questions that needed answered, go ahead and contact us by using our support drop-down. Thank you.